The Kaiserschlacht offensives, Germany's final roll of the dice, is at first a success. Operation Michael, a surprise attack aimed at dividing France and Britain in the West, is launched on the 21st of March. 63 German divisions attack over 60 miles of front and quickly overwhelm the outnumbered Allies. German troops advance rapidly across the Somme battlefield towards Amiens. In just 5 days, they recapture all of the territory they had lost over the previous 2 years. After 10 days, German troops are almost at the gates of Amiens, a vital rail junction, which lay defenseless. But after smashing through Allied lines so successfully, progress soon begins to falter before grinding to a halt completely. Territory gained from the offensive is soon retaken by the Allies, and the Germans retreat to ground that is more easily defendable. As casualties mount at a rapid rate, the Americans arrive on the battlefield, and the morale of the average German soldier begins to crack. One heavy blow after another is rained down upon German forces in swift succession, ensuring the military high command, Paul von Hindenburg and Erich von Ludendorff, can no longer reinforce their defensive lines. The Siegfried Stellung, aka the Hindenburg Line, is penetrated by the continual pressure of the Allies, and soon the German army as a fighting force is broken. The German home front fares no better, as the British naval blockade pushes the population to breaking point. The military government has no other option but to try and salvage whatever they can in the form of an armistice. As one empire stands bloody but victorious, another is about to enter freefall. As Germany's campaign to win the war collapses around them, and the reality of impending defeat sets in, Hindenburg and Ludendorff begin to shift blame and the responsibility of negotiating terms onto their political enemies, the social left. Having originally put aside its political differences with the Kaiser's regime, the Social Democratic Party, the SPD, had shown its true patriotic colors when war broke out in 1914, declaring that they would not betray the fatherland in its time of need. The SPD had voted unanimously for the credits needed to finance the war effort, inspiring the Kaiser to declare, "I no longer see parties, only Germans." But as the war has dragged on, political cohesion, as well as the SPD itself, has fractured. In 1916, Karl Liebknecht and Rosa Luxemburg, two radical left-wing breakaways of the SPD, attract thousands to an open demonstration against the war. Though they are jailed for their efforts, they will go on to form the Spartacus League, named after the leader of the Roman slave revolt. They preach international revolution and encourage the people to turn the so-called imperialist war into a class struggle. Their rally cries for revolution are emboldened as the strong left wing of the SPD party breaks away and forms the independent SPD, now known as the USPD. Led by Hugo Haas and emphasizing traditional Marxism, the party quickly gains traction through its voice in the Reichstag parliament. After just a single week of its founding, the USPD inspires 300,000 workers, including munitions makers, to take part in strikes in Berlin, Leipzig, Magdeburg, Halle, and Brunswick. Later that summer, a mutiny breaks out amongst the sailors of the High Seas Fleet, but is ultimately unsuccessful. Discontent is rife in the fatherland, however, and no more so than amongst the average German citizens. Enduring unfathomable hardships, the home population can do nothing but look on as the British blockade continues to strangle them. The bones of malnourished children curl with rickets, and a complete lack of fats in their food rations, which are instead diverted to ammunitions production, ensures that the average German's complexion becomes pale and sunken. By ensuring the majority of what's left of the country's dwindling resources are reserved exclusively for his army, Ludendorff erodes support of the war effort to critical levels, but still places blame on the social left. On October 1st, he addresses his staff officers and informs them that the war can no longer be won. I have asked His Majesty the Kaiser to incorporate those in government for whom we have to thank for our situation. We will now see these gentlemen entering office. They must conclude the necessary peace. They will have to swallow the soup they have cooked up for us. With this speech, Ludendorff plants the seeds of the myth that the German army has not been defeated on the battlefield, but instead stabbed in the back by socialist forces at home. The myth will continue to grow long after the fighting has stopped, and will have enormous consequences for Hitler, the Wehrmacht, and the German people long after the Great War has reached its conclusion. But for now, it changes little. If you are enjoying this video and would like to ensure that more episodes are produced, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and please consider subscribing to Enigma Productions. Darkness Over Deutschland continues now. Germany's allies soon drop out of the war in rapid succession due to combinations of brewing revolutionary fervor, mass desertions, disastrous defeats, and the prospect of peace. On September 30th, Bulgaria signs an armistice with the Allies and is soon joined the following month by Turkey, who signs an armistice of their own in the face of the collapsing Ottoman Empire. On November 9th, Germany's inevitable collapse finally becomes a reality. The teetering house of cards that is the Kaiser's regime finally collapses, and a new German government assumes control. The acting government immediately indicates its readiness to accept terms based upon Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Based on these points, Germany decrees that the war can be concluded and terms of a peace treaty can be negotiated. On November 11th, Ferdinand Foch, Supreme Commander of the Allied armies, receives German Center Party politician and head of the German delegation, Matthias Erzberger, and accepts his request for an armistice. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns finally fall silent. At the stroke of a pen, 4 years and 106 days of fighting finally come to an end. In total, the war to end all wars has taken the lives of 9.7 million military personnel, 4 million of which belong to the Central Powers. Of those 4 million, 52% are German. And what would prove to be a sinister precursor, as many as 10 million civilian lives are also lost during the course of the war. The Allies account for 3.6 million civilian casualties, almost half of whom are native Russians, a tally that is dwarfed by the civilian losses of the Central Powers, who suffer a staggering 6.8 million lives lost. Germany itself loses 426,000 civilian lives, many from disease and starvation. With the signing of the armistice, the war, for all intents and purposes, is over. For the Germans, however, the chaos on the home front has only just begun.